Unit 9, page 121. Listening. 3.
Welcome to our weekly topical discussion programme, In the News. This week, and over the next few weeks, we shall be looking at climate change, and in particular, what we as individuals can do to reverse the current trend. You will all by now have heard the term carbon footprint. By carbon footprint, we mean a measure of the impact that human activities have on the environment in terms of the amount of greenhouse gases they produce. These days, it is easy to work out how big one's own personal carbon footprint is, provided you've got internet access. You can simply go online, put the following information in: how much your annual household fuel bill is, how often and how far you travel, and a calculator will work it out for you. That gives you your primary carbon footprint. Your secondary carbon footprint is determined by your buying habits. Basically, if you buy food or items produced locally, then your carbon footprint will be smaller than if you buy produce which has to be either flown or shipped in from the other side of the world. There are, of course, ways of reducing the size of our carbon footprint. We can car share to work, travel by bus or train rather than by car, and use the train or coach instead of taking domestic flights. We can buy local fruit or veg, and buy local wine. If you live in the UK, then buy from European countries rather than Australia, South Africa or South America. And we should try to buy clothes or products from closer to home, and avoid items that have been made in China or India, for example. Another thing we can do is offset our carbon footprint. We can do this by planting trees, as these breathe in carbon dioxide and produce oxygen, thus reducing the amount and percentage of CO2 in the atmosphere. In today's programme, we shall be discussing the effect of air travel on the environment. Susan Hendry, you're a marketing director from Edinburgh. How have you been addressing this?
Thank you. I quit flying a year ago because I realised that all my other efforts to be green, recycling, exchanging my gas-guzzling 4x4 for an electric car, and insulating my house would be wiped out by a couple of holidays by air. For too long I'd been saying they, i.e. governments, must do something about global warming rather than we or I, and I suddenly realised that I can't expect things to change if I'm not prepared to change myself. How would I be able to look my own 5-year-old daughter in the eye in 20 years' time and say, I could have done something, but I chose not to?
What convinced you to take that step?
The arguments against flying are obvious. Do you know that one return flight, London to Florida, produces the equivalent carbon dioxide to a year's motoring? A return flight to Australia equals the emissions of 3 average cars for a year. And if you fly from London to Edinburgh for the weekend, you produce 8 times the carbon dioxide you would use if you took the train. Also, because the pollution is released at altitude, its effect on climate change is more than double that on the ground.
Nigel Hammond, you're in the travel industry. What's the present situation?
There has been a huge rise in the number of people flying. Do you know that in 1970 British airports were used by 32 million people? In 2004 the figure was 216 million. And in 2030, according to government forecasts, the figure will be around 500 million. The cheap flights offered by budget airlines have meant that more and more people think nothing of popping over to the continent for the weekend. Long-haul destinations are becoming increasingly popular too, even though ticket prices haven't seen the same reductions. But the biggest rise has been in short-haul flights, both domestic and to places like Spain, France and Italy.
I think the problem is that although most people know that flying contributes hugely to global warming, they are not really prepared to do anything about it. So they'll feel a bit bad while they're sitting on the plane flying to wherever it is they're going, but the moment they get to their destination, it'll be long forgotten. It certainly won't stop them planning their next weekend trip on their return.
I think that's very true. So, what solutions are there? Are there any?
There are a variety of solutions on offer. One is to put up the tax on aviation fuel. This has been tried already and didn't work. And I'm not really sure that an increase in tax is the best idea anyway. A lot of people are against it because they say it's a tax on the poor. Another is to limit the number of flights that people can take a year. I like that idea, but I'm not sure how practical it would be. Still, I think it would be worth giving it a go. And then, of course, there is carbon offsetting, whereby people plant trees on the other side of the world. The problem with that is that if they're cut down or there's a fire, you've lost your offset. At the end of the day...